Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Osborne, and I serve as the coordinator for Fraternity and Sorority Life here at DePaul. And we are back with another edition of 90 Stories for 90 Years. This is our campaign running throughout the school academic year that tells the stories of our students, faculty, staff, alumni, undergraduate members, etc., who have shaped fraternity and sorority life over the past 90 years at DePaul. So we're really excited today to have Claudia with us from Alpha Psi Lambda. Hi, Claudia.
Hello, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited. We'll go ahead and get started and kick it off with an introduction. Why don't you tell us your name, degrees, hometown, chapter affiliation, all the fun things.
Absolutely. My name, as you said, is Claudia Mosqueda. My nickname is Vigor. I crossed at Iota Chapter, DePaul University in 2003. So that was a long time ago. So nonetheless, I'm still continue to be involved. DePaul University has a club, an alumni club that I happen to be on the board of. So even as we were undergrads and continuing on to the adult world, it was important for us to continue on. So we established the club early on, and we're still here.
Awesome. Well, it's so great to hear how actively involved you still are with the chapter and with the alumni club. Maybe tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to since you graduated.
Absolutely. So as I said, I graduated a while ago, and I knew early since I was in second grade that I wanted to be a teacher. I was 7 years old, and I fell in love with the idea of being in the classroom and helping students out. So I graduated at DePaul with a bachelor's in secondary education Spanish, minor in art. Art is one of my passions, but I also knew that to pay the bills, it would be a little more difficult with an art degree than with a teaching license. So I did that. Through that, I got an ESL endorsement, and at that time, the bilingual bicultural department began. So the major started off then. It still continues to run now. As soon as I graduated, I landed a job in the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs, UMSA. I know it has a different name now, but I worked there to help pay for grad school. So I was under Ana Vasquez at that time, helping out with what was the STARS program then. And I stuck around for grad school. So I was part of the first graduating class with my master's in bilingual bicultural education back in 2004. After that, I landed a job teaching high school students. So I did that for about a decade. I taught Spanish and ESL. And through that time, I wanted to go back to school. So I went on to Concordia University to get a second master's in instructional leadership with a Type 75. So I taught for about a decade, and then an opportunity came for me to adjunct in higher education. So I went for it, and I realized that the graduating senior is not much different from a first-time freshman in colleges and universities. So I fell in love with that adult population, and then began my career in higher ed. First as an academic advisor, and then I moved into management into the adult education world. And now I'm an administrator in adult education. I'm an associate dean now, working at Morton College in Cicero. Cicero, if people aren't familiar, it's across the street from Chicago. A lot of the same population. Morton College is one of the 16 Hispanic serving institutions in the state. So the population is very much a lot like what we would know as Chicago or inner city. And that's where I'm at now, Mary.
That is quite the path and quite the extensive educational journey. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And it's so cool to see how involved and active you still are in the higher education community. You know, you mentioned like right out of undergrad working for what's now OMS, as you mentioned, at DePaul, and then now being an associate dean. That's so amazing and wonderful. Thank you for kind of sharing that, your whole like academic and professional journey. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, and just, it's so important. It's so important that we continue to be examples for students of color, right? To continue on with completing their bachelor's and then their master's. And, hopefully one day I'll be one of those statistics in the PhD. But when we talk about there's only 24% of Latinos in the United States earning even an associate's degree or higher, that's alarming and concerning, right? So I think we have to not only get our students into college and then university, but then retain them and give them that access to education.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love that you mentioned like retaining college students. And I think that that's a huge component of what fraternities and sororities do. And I think in particular for our culturally based fraternities and sororities, I think that is such an integral part of the experience and that retention of students. So maybe tell me a little bit about why you decided to join an organization in the first place, and maybe why specifically Alpha Psi Lambda.
Yeah, absolutely. So back then, during that time, and I was on campus from 99 and until 4 years later. So during that time, it seemed like all the Latinos on campus, we knew each other. Somebody knew somebody that knew somebody. A lot of us, although from Chicago, like myself, born and raised in the Southwest side, I still lived on campus. There was a large population, well, still small, but large in our eyes, right? Compared to what DePaul University is, but there was a large amount of students of color on campus. So we all kind of knew each other. Dale played a huge part of my undergrad careers. I know that's still around, but I served as president for a few years and our boards were awesome. I also was given the grand honor of continuing on what was back there a bilingual publication called Ahora DePaul. And so we ran that newspaper and we would distribute it to different communities. So the organizations were very involved. I had a lot of friends who were involved in fraternities and sororities. However, I will say this, I did not become an associate member or pledge, as we used to call it back then. Right? I didn't become an associate member till my senior year. I was, I knew a lot of my good friends were in fraternities and sororities. It was just, in my eyes then, not for me. I thought, oh, community service, oh, we do that through Dale. I do that through this. Oh, leadership, got that. Don't need that. Friends, I have my own. And then this notion of family or familia that Alpha Psi Lambda states, I was like, whoa, I got my family. What is this? But as it was coming time to graduate, I realized I was going to be a young Latina in the real world, not knowing much about the real world, right? So I knew that I needed connections. I knew I wanted to stay connected also to universities and college, seeing that I was going to be in the education system. There's many times when I was a high school teacher where I had a student who was interested at UIC. Oh, I would hook them up with brothers and sisters at UIC. Oh, I want to go to Loyola. Oh, over there, Eastern. So different, chapters around not only, Chicagoland, but Illinois. That was important to me, right? To connect those few. So I decided to join Alpha Psi Lambda. At that time, it was 15 of us who did the process together. Some of them were already near and dear to my heart. One of them, my brother, my anchor, I knew him since we were 4 years old. So we did this together. So it was exciting. But like you said, it was a way to get more involved and continue to be involved. I was the oldest one out of the 15, so I had the luxury to see everyone grow up and celebrate everybody's 21st birthday. But I got, the access to do that and to try to help, to continue to keep members involved. And, in our national executive board a few years back, there was this running joke that the problem that our campus had in our chapter was that we graduated members. IOTA, DePaul University graduates members. Ultimately, that's what we're here to do. Right? So fraternity and sororities are a means for us to support each other, to graduate. But then after that, it was still important for us to continue to be involved and continue the professional development for our alumni, continue to have them involved, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and if that's a problem, then that's a good problem to have, that you're graduating members. I mean, I think that's more of a perk than a problem.
Yeah.
That's so funny though. So in your time as an undergraduate, or even, in your time being active as an alumni member, is there a mentor or an advisor or someone that had an impact on your experience? And if so, can you tell us why?
So again, back then, there were so many people on campus that would help us out. And with us, I'm not only talking about ourselves as members of Alpha Psi Lambda, but also just the Latino community back then. Our RA community, there was a lot of us who were RAs and served on it and served as RAs for multiple years. It was a great way to get our dorm paid for, and so they were really supportive. Our advisor for a lot of time was Anita Rosso, who is now retired, but she oversaw the TRIO program. That a lot of our students of color take advantage of that great services that the TRIO program, offers. So she had been instrumental in just helping out through our time there. As I said, I worked with Ana Vasquez in the OMSA office. She was instrumental in just helping with the stars, and they offer scholarships for our students. And again, that's a big part of being able, to retain students. Back then too, the Student Leadership Institute was kicking off. And I think it's called something different now. If it still exists. So the folks there were awesome again in helping to mentor first generation college students. So again, I think it was a lot of us, and I don't know how many students now currently live on campus, but I think that played a big role when we were in undergrad, just having a presence on campus, welcoming the first time students. I mean, we're away from home for the first time, and even though we're still in Chicago, it's DePaul is a whole different world, or it can be. It's a big culture shock. So yeah, we definitely had a lot of help. But for me, also some of the older members of different organizations, those who came before me, who helped lead the way for us, they were huge in part to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I can imagine that you probably, if we were to ask any of the younger members of Alpha Psi Lambda, or even any of the younger Latino or Latino students on campus, they probably would say that you served as a mentor and advisor. It sounds like you had your hands in a lot of different areas and really helped grow and kind of chart some paths, it sounds like, for Alpha Psi Lambda and for young Latina and Latinos on campus. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing who you kind of look to, but I imagine that you also probably touched some lives there too.
We hope so. And, with DePaul, we currently have 6 members on campus. But, about a year and a half ago, we were, our membership was quite low. 6 is still relatively low number, right? Compared to maybe other universities or bigger chapters. But these 6 members are on campus now. We were able to be such an integral part of bringing back the organization on campus and redeveloping. Actually, one of our active members now is a PhD student at DePaul University. So she's back in action, ready to go. So again, she's coming back, and hopefully, with the 5 undergrad members, we want to see them be active with our fraternity. But we need to see them graduate, is the bottom line, and find a job and be successful in whatever their goal may be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's probably one of my favorite things as I've started working more hands-on with Alpha Psi Lambda. And I know you didn't talk a lot before we got on the stream, but I serve as the MGC advisor and directly advise Alpha Psi Lambda. And I love that graduate students can come back and be actively involved in not the undergraduate chapter, but in DePaul's chapter, like present on campus. I think that's also a really great mentorship opportunity within the chapter that I think some fraternities and sororities miss out on because they may not allow, or it's not really like specified if that's allowed or not. But I think that's a really cool opportunity for Alpha Psi Lambda members to stay engaged and to serve as a good mentor and a role model for the members in the chapter. I think that's amazing. So it's really cool to hear that there's a PhD student currently in the chapter and actively involved.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Now that you mentioned MGC, I think that was a big turning point for us as an organization on campus. When that started back in 2001, it was 5 organizations, including Alpha Psi Lambda, who kind of brought MGC onto campus. A big part because we are co-ed. We are the only co-ed organization in there. We're the first in the nation, the largest in the nation. But when we were on campus, IFC would do something, for example, a football tournament. Well, does that mean we as women can be included, or did it not? Penn Hell would do something. Does that mean our brothers can participate or not? So when that started coming out, Alpha Psi Lambda know that they needed a different outlet, a new governing board. So they, along with 4 other organizations, got together and sat around and created, MGC, which is awesome that it's still around.
Yeah, and they're doing really wonderfully. They have 8 active organizations right now, and lots of interest for potential future opportunities with MGC as well. So they're doing really wonderful. So thanks again for all the support and hands that you played in making that a reality for the community. We're going to kind of shift a little bit and talk more specifically about your experience in Alpha Psi Lambda. So what has your organization taught you about service and philanthropy? And I know that you have some things coming up that you want to share too, but tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have a lot of things always, going on, but one of our biggest is giving back. We have 8 goals and purposes, and one of them is to, and it is to continue back and bring people, forward. So our national philanthropy is the Boys and Girls Club. However, currently the IOTA Alumni Club, we're putting together a virtual food and clothing drive. And if any members are on looking at this, I think you can type on the chat, right, a link straight to the web page. So if you guys can do that for me, that'd be awesome. But what we did is, every holiday season we try to do something, and it also, mingled with an event. Like, hey, let's meet here and have a food drive. Let's dance. Let's have a few cocktails, etc. Well, COVID, we had to think a little bit differently. So we were thinking we still want to help an organization, whether it's another institution, a community-based org, someone somewhere. So we looked at a few different options. So we've partnered up with Morton College. Morton College, again, is a Hispanic serving institution, and it has a Panther Pantry is what the institution called it. And it's really cool. It looks like a little store, but it provides needed food and some toiletries for our students, staff and faculty, and if needed, and the community. We know during these hard times, families have been affected in many different ways, and we need to keep that pantry stocked. The school needs to keep it stocked for their students, for family members, for the community. So what we're doing is we're having a virtual food and toiletry drive all through the month of December. We'll end it in the first week of January, where folks can donate money to us, and then we will either buy in bulk and donate to Morton College, or give them the monies. Why give them the monies? One of the fastest and most popular food items are eggs and milk. And well, we can't buy that now and have it for 2 months from now, right? So we're donating money to the college, and they can spend it as see fit. So if anyone is out there and has, today with the Giving Tuesday initiative that everyone's doing, if you have a couple extra bucks to spend, please do so, as it's really needed, and it's something easy, right? If somebody wants to donate supplies in bulk, just please let us know also, and we can arrange for pickup. We did want to minimize that, obvious reasons due to COVID, and but if you have large supplies, please, we're not going to turn you away, and we'll figure it out.
Awesome, wonderful. Well, I'll make sure that whenever we share this over on our Instagram page, that we share that link in the comment section as well, so that way people will have access to it beyond today during our time talking. But thanks for sharing that so much with us, and I'm excited to see the turnout for that and hear more about that from the chapter later on. So what would you say brotherhood, sisterhood, siblinghood, knowing that your co-ed organization, means to you? How would you describe that relationship? And you kind of mentioned before the familial aspect of Alpha Psi Lambda too. So
right. So when people ask, what's the thing you've gained the most, and I say a familia, and I say it like, because it sounds so corny, right? I gained a family. It sounds so corny. And by all means, just like a regular, like our blood family, there's some family members we don't have the luxury of necessarily choosing, right? We don't necessarily love everyone the same, right? And get along 100% with everyone. And it's the same thing in the fraternity. I think one of the most important things to remember is that we are co-ed. I grew up with one blood brother, love dearly. We get along fantastically. No sisters, but I myself could not see myself in a sorority. I just couldn't. I also remember, I'm saying is, I was getting ready to enter the real world. In the real world, it's not a it's not a woman only world, right? So to have those brothers and those sisters is impactful. So, for example, the 15 that I crossed with, 4 of them were male, the rest were female. And there was times where we'd be having discussions, Mary, about the color of T-shirts, literally, a color of how the T-shirts would look. And I remember when a brother's like, "Hey, really? Like, come on, just pick a shirt." And it's just like, okay. So to have that male voice and influence in creating programming, doing community service, doing fundraiser is important, because it brings us to the real world. So I have found some of my best friends, and I say my chosen family now, in Alpha Psi Lambda, because I do have the luxury to say, these are my brothers and these are, my sisters. And it means, in all aspects of the word, having their back, but also bringing them and moving them forward, right? Success, if I get to a point where I feel I am successful, where I feel that I have achieved something, my thoughts is like, okay, how can we bring those people and move them up forward? My brothers and sisters, what can I do now in the position I'm in with my experiences, to shed light on the younger brothers and sisters to, again, push them forward.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you talked about that, having that both male and female perspectives in the organization and how that prepared you for post-college life. I think that that's like a huge benefit. And even hearing you talk about like the t-shirts, oh my gosh, I'm a member of a Panhellenic sorority, and I remember in college the conversations over the t-shirts, and even advising sometimes now. It would have been nice to have someone that's like, it's a t-shirt, man. Like, let's move on. So even something like that, even something like something that small, like you can really see how that would have an impact and help you develop and prepare for, sitting in a boardroom with lots of different people, and in particularly in mixed company, as far as like males and females go. And so that's really awesome.
And I think, as time has progressed and as we've come more social justice oriented, just the mere fact that we all are inclusive, that, we welcome males and females, or someone who doesn't want to identify as such. We have many members of our organization in the LGBTQA community. And we welcome that wholeheartedly. We've had it also, in a sense, a smoother ride, right? Because now as fraternities and sororities are starting to see, well, what do we do about maybe a transgender member or someone who was, and has so that comes into play also as a true example of being completely inclusive to everyone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that and for putting that information out there, I think, for everyone. And that's a really great point about inclusivity in fraternities and sororities, and seeing Alpha Psi Lambda as one of the probably the most inclusive fraternities and sororities out there when it comes to gender identity. So thank you for sharing all of that. So what is your favorite value of your organization and why?
I love that question. We have 8 official, right? And for me, the one that always stood out to me, and just because that it's also a model for my own life, is advocate for the needs and concerns of Latino students. So again, advocate for the needs and concerns of Latino students. I think in general, empowering people is creating them to be self-advocates, and we need to empower people to do that. Whether it's someone who is in college for the first time, learning English for the first time, whatever the goal may be, that self-advocacy is important. So we are Latino interns, but not Latino only. Some of our most active members are not Latino, right? But again, it goes back to advocating for the needs and concerns of the Latino student. We talked a little bit about retention before. The fact that there is under 15% of students nationwide that have a bachelor's degree, or in the United States, that's alarming and concerning, right? And when we talk about master's degrees, the fact that there's like 5% of us with master's degree, like that's concerning, right? There's about 33%, 35% that leave college and university, right? That's concerning, and it continues to be my responsibility, your responsibility, everyone's responsibility that has gotten that point, to help others along the way, right? And sometimes it's mere access, it's creating scholarships, it's making sure that our undocumented students feel welcome and able to begin, finish college, but then what? Where will they find a job? How can we make sure that there's something for them to reach for, right? And it's hard conversations. It's tough conversations when you have a student, who, is maybe a DACA recipient, but still can't afford school, right? When you have a student who finally, has aspirations to become a teacher, for example, and they can take the state exams, but they can't find a job, right? If they, so it's those hard conversations. So I think as an organization, that value is near and dear to my heart, advocating for the needs and concerns of Latinos, but it's also something that we have to continue to work on, right? We do. We have to continue to work on and take bigger stances and create this of equality, not only for ourselves, but for all students of color. We have to be able to be unified, to our Black brothers and sisters, to our Asian communities, because we all have a similar story in the sense of a lot of us are first generation college students, and we're trying to make it. We're trying to do this right. We're trying to, and we don't need no handouts by no means, but we need support and advocates and allies. So
absolutely. When I love how earlier you were kind of talking about your involved, and I really throughout this whole interview you've been talking about your continued involvement in Alpha Psi Lambda and being able to be that continuity in that, like in the advocacy, right, and to continue to educate not just your brothers and sisters, right, in Alpha Psi Lambda, but continuing to serve as a resource and an advocate for the Latino community at large. And I think that tie-in and how that value from your own organization ties in so well with your personal life experience and your professional career, and how you continue to kind of build up Latino communities is really powerful. A really powerful connection to Alpha Psi Lambda. Honestly, I think that's probably, I have a little bit of chills. Like, that's probably the coolest connection that I've heard to the values of an organization in many of my interviews. And I've loved all of the interviews, but I just loved hearing you talk about that and how that's really been like a theme throughout this entire interview too. And it's a really good, like good bow for the end of that. Yeah. Well, we're to our closing question now. And this is more of a fun one, but what is your favorite memory of being a member of your organization?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many fond and awesome memories to be a part of the fraternity. And I think maybe a lot of members say this, but back when I was joining the organization in our intake process, right, it was 15 of us who would get together often, right, to hang out and go through the process. And we got to meet a lot of members. We are the largest line at DePaul University. And so a lot of chapters were in that mix. Because we were low in numbers at that time, for example, my pledge parent is from a different chapter. And my pledge parent, who was my parent, was able to be there when our founder started. And that's the case for many of us. So we had a lot of alumni come back through our process. So they were taking us to meet all kinds of people. And I think that was a really strong, great foundation to becoming, then a member. We yearly try to get, everyone together. Again, I have a beautiful daughter now who's going to be 2, but at my baby shower, it was cool. 11 out of the 15 were there. So it's just an awesome thing. Yeah, it's an awesome thing to reconnect. A lot of us are parents now. A lot of us are out of state even now, professionals, but we all try to, connect here and there. So I would say, that has been awesome. But also just the ability to be able to be involved, to continue to be involved, especially with DePaul. Being a demon, a lot of us are super proud of that. And it's funny because when I graduated, I'd be like, yeah, I graduated from DePaul. And I guess it was a big deal. Oh, DePaul. Like, yeah, DePaul. It's something that, over the years, I've been very proud of, It's like, yeah, it's not the cheapest school for sure. It's not the easiest school, academics, the rigor, the quarter system is not the easiest, So it is a proud thing to be an alumni from DePaul, but also for a fraternity. So that's why, it's so important that we continue to, for all the alumni who are out there listening, it's important to just continue to be involved, with your chapter. Sometimes all they need is, $20 to have pizza at their informational, or sometimes they need you to show up, and be a representation. But we try to, be involved as much as possible. And DePaul has made it really nice and welcoming for alumni to do that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all throughout this interview, for sharing your favorite memories, and for giving that little plug and call out to all the alumni out there. We always love and welcome the support from our alumni and from advisors. So if you have any questions or you want to reach out to someone about getting involved, obviously with Claudia, but then on the DePaul side, I'm happy to talk as well. Well, that is all that we have for today. Claudia, thank you again so much for hopping on here and chatting with me today. I've so enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having us. And again, so if anybody, has a couple bucks to give us for the donation, also I know, undergrads are now on break. But we're still continuing to be active. Our organization is having an informational this Friday. We'll post a flyer up all there too. So if there's anybody out there who's interested to learn more about Alpha Psi Lambda, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. Well, everyone out there, keep watching for more 90 stories for 90 years. We'll be continuing this throughout the rest of this academic year. So stay tuned to hear from some more alumni, faculty, staff, and students. But that is all that we have for now. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.